Hello, and welcome to Stephoodle. I am, unsurprisingly, Steph. I've got yet another collab doll for you. Joined a lot of collabs this year. This collab was co-hosted by Dolly Do-Over and Mr. Sprocket Imaginarium on Instagram, and it was for the Arcana. The Arcana is a tarot-themed fantasy romance visual novel for iOS and Android developed by Nix Hydra, which is very LGBTQ friendly. I do love a game that lets me choose my pronouns. The story is intriguing and the art is absolutely stunning. Quite a few of the characters were taken before I joined the collab, but I was surprised to find out that Nadia was still available. She's like one of the OG main three characters that were there at the very start, along with Azra and Julian. She has gorgeous, gorgeous outfits. I wasn't sure which to make at first, so I did a Google image search just to refresh my memory and go through my options. And I was trying to decide between these three looks when I came across a spoiler. To be fair, Nix Hydra did post images, concept images, of this version of Nadia on their Behind the Arcana Twitter account. So the information is out there ready to be found. So I don't quite feel so bad. What I found was Nadia's look for her reversed ending, Devil Nadia. And when I saw her, I knew that's the Nadia I wanted to make, because she looks so badass. Plus, she had a lot of mods that I'd never done before. Horns, hooves, an extra leg joint thing. Now, there's probably going to be a lot of continuity errors in this video because I was working on everything at once. Just as a heads up. I've edited everything into sort of cohesive sections so it makes it a bit more sense and is a little easier to follow. With that in mind, let's get started. I'll be using this Barbie fashionista head, this Made to Move body, and this Monster High Nephra Denials forearms. I got a replacement set for her, don't worry. She doesn't need those. But you'll be seeing her in a future video. I'll be using those forearms to help me create Nadia's leg modifications. There's some nightmare fuel for you. To remove the heads, I put both dolls into a plastic bag. After I cut the hair off the fashionista head, I forgot to film that part, and let them stew in a mug of boiling water. Once the vinyl is squishy enough, I can take their heads off safely. I scrape out the remains of the hair and wiped off the factory paint with pure acetone. Now it's time to work on her horns. Using the illustration as a guide, I marked where I want her horns to be on her head. Then I insert wires into her head using some of the existing holes and twist them together to make an armature. Once I have them in the right shape, I begin making passes with Milliput, which is a 2-part epoxy clay. First I just cover the wires and fill in the shapes. Then in future passes, I refine the shapes and the ridges of the horns. After about a day, they're dry. I sand them, then trace around them to mark their placement on the head before removing them. I painted the horns black. Then I dry brushed the tips and the ridges with gold. Afterwards, I sealed the paint with 2 coats of matte Mod Podge. Next, I prepped the body by sanding, including removing the molded on underwear, which was a first for me. It's finally time to work on the legs. As always, when working with power tools or chemicals or anything that I do during this, be an adult, use caution and the proper safety equipment. This is not stuff for children. I very carefully use my Dremel tool to drill into the wrist portion of the forearms to widen and deepen the hole. first added a little bit of wire to the elbow joint to make the peg fit more snugly into the hole where the foot used to go. This would sound so weird out of context, but it makes sense. It's a little too small to fit into that joint, so I had to bulk it up a little bit. At first I thought I'd be attaching the feet directly onto the forearms, but I realized the legs would be too short. So I ended up adding a length of bamboo skewer to each leg. I connected everything with wire and 2-part epoxy glue before moving on to clay. As with the horns, I made several passes with the clay, first filling in the shapes, and then refining and sanding, adding details, more sanding. Once everything is cured, and sanded, obviously, I painted the lower legs, feet, and hands black. I used some of the matte Mod Podge to build up her nails a bit to give her more of a manicured look. And then I painted her nails and her hooves in gold. I sprayed the body with a couple of coats of Mr. Super Clear and added her collarbone tattoos, body blushing, and a gradient to black on her arms and legs. This was my very first experience with a pan pastel. I bought it specifically for this purpose, and it's fantastic. I was able to achieve a really nice looking gradient in only 2 layers, which is just, what am I doing with my life? With my other pastels. And then I remember how much they cost. So I'll definitely be picking up more here and there, but only as and when I need them, and that'll slowly build up my collection over time. I think that's the way to go with those, because that initial outlay, oof. But I'm very thankful to have this black one. I also splurged on my first pot of Pearl X powder, because Devil Nadia needs some gorgeous, glittering gold highlights. I did 2 layers, and the sparkle didn't seem to fade after sealing with MSC, so that's good. Granted, I was going for a more subtle glow rather than a really glittery finish, but I think it's held up decently well. Going back in time a little bit, onto the reroute. I'll be using pink, red, and orange sections from this bright rainbow ball of yarn. I cut the yarn into shorter pieces and separated the colors out before unraveling the strands. Then I rooted the yarn. You can see my Wish Me Mel video for a little more in-depth look at this process. I put the pink up front, the orange in the back, and the red in between, avoiding the areas marked for the horns. Then I brushed out the yarn and straightened it, and bundled it up to get ready for the face up. I was so intimidated by this face up, as I'd never repainted a Barbie head before, and they are so tiny. But I took a deep breath and I dove in, referring to the illustration along the way. I really tried to channel Hextian for this one, like super hard, because Nadia has this fierce looking makeup and Hextian can like nail those looks so well, and on Barbie heads no less. So it's just like praying to Hextian the whole time. I did try to give her a more open mouth smile like she has in the illustration in the game, but I just couldn't get the teeth to look right, so I scrapped it in the end. And of course, I had to give her a little golden glow with that Pearl-X powder. I sealed her in with 2 final coats of Mr. Super Clear. Then I unwrapped her hair and combed it out. I used a blow dryer to heat up and soften the vinyl so I could reattach her head more easily without damaging the face up. I applied gloss varnish to her lips to make them nice and shiny, and added a tiny bit to her eye shines. And now, we jump back in time to make her dress. Or at least to show you how I made the dress pattern, because I had to do a lot of this off screen. It turned out to be a little more complicated than I thought, but I'll at least show you this part. Like in my last video for Naira, I used the wrapping technique to make a pattern. I wrapped the doll in cling film and then masking tape. I really only needed the bodice portion here because the rest of the dress is free flowing. So I just needed to mark where everything was and where the slits would start. Referencing the illustration, I draw seam lines as well as other guidelines on the masking tape. Then I can carefully cut the tape off along the seam lines and trace those shapes onto graph paper, adding the length as well as the seam allowance. And that's what the pattern looked like. I made the dress out of black velvet and a sheer red fabric. Off screen, I embroidered the design on the front panel as well as the top edge with a glittery gold thread. For her choker and horn adornments, I used a strip of faux leather that I painted gold. I cut out my pieces, realizing that I should probably avoided to paint it, and added raised detail with 3D fabric paint before going over it all again with gold. I also made the gems for her forehead and collar, as well as a shape that will become her spiked earrings out of silk clay. Painted the stones red with some gold undertones, and then painted her spike earrings red. Red? I painted them gold. Then I gave the collar and horn decoration a wash with black metallic paint just to give them more dimension. Then I attached the collar gem with super glue. I also used super glue to attach snap fasteners to the collar. I cut her forehead gem in half so that one side would be flat and glued it onto some of the gold embroidered thread. I first glued the gem to her forehead. This hurt me inside a little bit but it was the only way I could think of to make it lay down properly. I worked hard on that face, and then I just slapped some glue on it. But it's okay. Next, I glued on her big horns. I then trimmed down the embroidery thread and glued the ends onto the horns. Then I fixed the decorations over top to hide the end of the thread. Then I glued on her smaller horns. Next, I put on her dress. I know I usually wait to get the doll dressed until the very end, but this was a whole thing, so just roll with me on this. And I put on the collar as well, just to make sure it fits. I then measured out a length of sheer red ribbon and gold thread that I'll need for her shoulders, although now I see I don't have the footage for the thread part. But I did do that. And off camera, I glued them to the inside of the collar. I glue on her spike earrings. Then I put on her finished collar. And tack down the red ribbon with some red thread to get it to lay in the right place. And she's done. All things considered, I'm very happy with her, and I'm a little less afraid of customizing Barbie dolls now. I think I can tackle that. I'm also very excited to try more mods in the future, because now I know I can do them, so that's exciting. What do you think of my take on Devil Nadia? Have you ever played the Arcana? Which route is your favorite? Please go take a look at all of the other amazing dolls in this collab. I have linked them all in the description down below. Everyone's done an amazing job. I hope you liked this video, and if you do, give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see me make more things, subscribe and click the bell icon so you can be notified the next time I post a video. I do have a Halloween video planned. Genuinely, I want to thank all of my subscribers. I really appreciate it. I know I'm brand new to this YouTube game and I don't have much content up yet, but thank you for seeing something in me and wanting to see more, and I hope you stick around. Until next time, bye!